Well, good morning to you, Jeffrey Daugherty, Christian Whistleblower. Welcome to the Jeff Daugherty Show, Christian Whistleblower YouTube channel. We're glad to have you. Who did Jacob wrestle with? Did Jacob wrestle with God? Did Jacob, not sure who Jacob wrestled with, but did Jacob wrestle with God? Did Jacob wrestle with an angel? What does the literal scripture say that Jacob wrestled with? Who does the literal scripture say that Jacob wrestled with? And are there other stories in religious lore that equate with this idea of Jacob wrestling with an angel? Well, you can see the picture here, and this one certainly looks like Jacob, the idea is that Jacob wrestled with an angel. And what I find very interesting is if you go down and look at the different interpretations of it throughout art, you get some, Rembrandt, I don't know about how you feel, but I feel a little kind of eroticism coming out of that one. So kind of a different idea. Of course, Rembrandt was apparently of the wrestled an angel school of thought. This one is more just generic wrestling an angel. Interesting. Looks like a male angel there. That one I would have to say kind of androgynous, huh? Reminds me of the Michael in the movie Constantine. That's a close-up. Again, androgynous, but kind of masculine. I was going to say something bad about the former First Lady, but I won't. This one looks like a masculine angel. And for our friends on the other side of the aisle, a little homoerotica. Yeah, nothing between those two but a thin layer of whatever that is. And you notice that Jacob's got his sexy little fur G-string working there, so that's interesting. What's his angel trying to do to him? I'm not really sure. We should just get off of that one before. And now here, that's very interesting. The look at the tattooing here. Very interesting. A bunch of Puritans or nuns watching it happen. Now that is interesting. So, showed you all that to show that there really is some diversity of opinion as to what actually happened on that instance. And the one thing that I wanted to point out to you, there's different interpretations. Martin Luther, John Calvin said, yeah, he did wrestle with God. Calvin thought it was a vision. And this is the one I think is the most fanciful. Well, this was obviously a Christophany. Without a doubt, the angel with whom Jacob wrestles is a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ in the form of a man. Absolutely. That's the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in. We know who it was now. Are you kidding me, man? Come on. What I also find interesting is, let's look at what these other views are. Myth, legend. Ernest Bloch, example of a bloodthirsty, vengeful God outdone by cunning human beings, keen to avoid his fury. Roland Baer, criticism of heaven on Marxism and theology. Now I thought this was really interesting right here. The wrestling incident has been compared to the Greek mythology stories of Achilles' duel with Scamander, and more closely with Menelaus wrestling with Proteus. And that comes out of Bruce Loud in 2011, Homer's Odyssey in the Near East. So there is a lot of historical and mythological prelude to this. Menelaus means vigor, rage, power. Menelaus was a pre-Dorian king of Sparta, the husband of Helen of Troy. How about that? Now, I did not know that Menelaus was the husband of Helen of Troy. How about that? How about that? So the husband of Troy, very interestingly, wrestled with Proteus. And Proteus was an early sea god. Rivers, bodies of water, and other deities who Homer calls the old man of the sea. How interesting is that? So a lot of scholars think that the Jacob wrestling with God/angel is a take on the bloodthirsty, vengeful God being outwitted by cunning humans. And maybe this is what Yahweh's been worried about all along. Being outdone by cunning human beings, keen to avoid his fury. And you know what? He has the right to be worried, because that's happening right now. Before your very eyes and his. Somewhere, the rat bastard, Yahweh, Lord, Jehovah, Marduk, Yaldabaoth, he's losing sleep. He's sweating. He's worried. Because he sees the Christian whistleblower growing day by day. He sees the lights going on all over the world. Bing, 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 because people are seeing this. They're getting this. They're understanding this. And don't think for a moment, I know this sounds self-aggrandizing, but don't think for a moment that when a message that has been dormant for over 2,000 years, a message that he had successfully stomped out, don't think that when that message is once again being heard, that he doesn't take notice. Oh, he knows. And he's worried, and he's scared. And he has a right to be. Because we're coming for him. We've got our pitchforks. We've got our clubs. We've got our torches. And the peasants are storming the castle. And we are not looking to put him on trial. We're looking to take him down. Take him down to Chinatown. It's going to happen. So there is mythological precedence for this. Menelaus, the husband of Helen of Troy, fighting with the god Proteus. Very, very interesting. But the speculations are always interesting. Especially the sexy artwork. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But anyway, you know me, you know where I want to go. I want to go to the language. I want to go to the Greek. I want to know what it really says. So Genesis 32:28, let's read it from the King James Version, bless God. Because we all know that Jacob had a, you know, the story is that Jacob rested his head on a rock. That's not true. Jacob rested his head on a King James Bible. Yep. Not many people know that one, but it's the truth, because everyone knows that the King James Bible is the rock. The King James Bible is the rock of your faith. If you ain't got a King James Bible, you ain't got nothing. King James is your rock, so obviously Jacob wasn't resting his head on a rock. He was resting his head on the first ever version of the King James Bible. Glory to hallelujah. You know it's true. So anyway, and Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, when the man saw that he prevailed not against Jacob, he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and it was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." let me go because the sun's coming up. Certainly gives us the indication that this being couldn't be out in the sun. And he said, I will not let you go except you bless me. And he said to him, what's your name? And he said, Jacob. And then the being said, that name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince thou hast power with God and men, and has prevailed. How about that? How about that? And according to as they're perfectly superstitious people, the children of Israel don't eat the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh to this day. Okay. So what say you we take a look at the Hebrew? Let's start with verse 24. Because Genesis was written in Hebrew. So we're going to take a gander at it in Hebrew. And this is where you have to forget everything you've been told and let the language and let the actual original writing speak to you. And Jacob was left alone. He was left alone. Okay, so he was by himself. And wrestled there. An unused word, interesting. So he was wrestling. He was getting dusty. I put some of those pictures in a whole new light. But I mean, before we just joke around, he was getting dusty. He was kicking up dust with this being. That's interesting. To be dust, to grapple. See, it actually means to be dust. To have dust come down upon you. And i.e., they're using it, in example, to grapple or to wrestle. What does a Bach really mean? It means dust. So they were kicking up dust, this angel and Jacob, this being in Jacob, this God in Jacob. They were kicking up dust. They were kicking up dust. 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 What do you notice? Well, this is just art, but still. Lots of groin-to-groin contact there. Lots of groin-to-groin contact there. Yeah, lots of groin-to-groin contact there. And, yeah. Interesting. You got the kind of a mounting kind of action. I mean, I'm interpreting this art. I did take 2 years of art history as well. We got a mounting going on right here, right? We got a mounting going on right here. We got a mounting going on right here. We got a mounting going on right here. What's this whole business right here? That doesn't look like they're wrestling. That looks like they're kicking up dust. It's best I not say any more, but Jacob wrestled with the angel. Jacob wrestled with God. Jacob wrestled with the being. Well, it's interesting, but the literal text doesn't say he wrestled. It says he was kicking up dust with him until the break of day. How many of you have ever wrestled with someone until the break of day? I mean, wrestled like WWE, or wrestled like college wrestling, Greco-Roman, luchador, Nacho Libre. Yes, it is true. I am Nacho. Takes a lot of strength. I mean, I never wrestled because I played football, and I watched those fools training. I'm like, there ain't no way. You can't wrestle all night. Can't do it. But if it's kicking up dust, if that's what the kids were calling it back in those days, you can do that all night. You can do that all night. So whatever they were doing it all night, and it doesn't say wrestling, it says kicking up dust. If you're in the desert, laying on a rug, resting your head on a King James Bible, I could see some dust getting kicked up. And when he saw that he had not prevailed, he had not been able to have power over, when he had saw that he wasn't able to do a thing, when he saw he wasn't able to do a thing, he touched the socket of his thigh. Touches the socket that means the flat part of your hand, your palm of your hand. So, I did not see this coming. He put the palm of his hand on his loin. He put the palm of his hand on his loin, the seats of his procreative power. Whoa, Nelly. I promise you I didn't see this coming. Pardon the pun. He put his palm of his hand over the seat of his procreative power. Of Jacob as he wrestled with him. And male, female, 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 male, male. Hey, to me, it's all the same. Morally, I mean, I'm not trying to. We're not bashing anybody here, but all I'm saying is, this ain't the story they tell us in Sunday school, is it? So while they were kicking up dust, literally, this being put the palm of his hand on the seat of Jacob's procreative powers, which to this day the Jews don't eat. Oh my. Oh my. And he said, "Let me go." And he said farewell to him. Farewell. I wonder if he asked for his number. So he said farewell. For breaks For a coming is the day, or the sun. Let me go, 'cause the dawn's coming. And Jacob says, can't you just stay a little longer, sweetheart? No. Can't you just stay a little longer, sweetheart? No. Jacob said, get out of here. Bye-bye. But before you go, can I have your number? Sort of. But before you go, can you please bless me? And I'm not even going to get into this kneel down part of it. Kneel, bless. But before you go, could you kneel down? Okay. He's kicking up dust with this being all night. The being puts his palm of his hand on Jacob's procreative parts, says, okay, I'll see you later. Jacob says, before you go, can you just kneel down? Hebrew. Hebrew for show. Anyway, Hebrew. And so, after he says, can you just kneel down before you go? I'm not going to let you go unless you kneel down. And then he said to him, what's your name? Anyway, and he says, hey, I'm Jacob. He says, well, guess what? You're not Jacob anymore. Your name's going to be Israel, because with the Elohim, you have struggled. You've contended. You have exerted yourself. You have been a prince. I'm glad they didn't say queen. You have been a prince because you have struggled against the Elohim. For now, Israel strives with God, the God of strife. Israel means the God of strife. Israel means the God of strife. Israel means the God that fights. So why is it such a surprise that Yahweh is such a warrior? So it's like this being said, welcome to the club. And you have prevailed with men and with God, it says. Oh, yeah. Let's go back to the very beginning of this rather strange story. Jacob wrestled a man. I know that we're taught this is an angel. I know that we're taught that this is a God. Verse 24, right? And there he wrestled with a man. What does that mean in the Greek? Oh, surely that means like an angel, a divine being, something like that. What's it mean in the original Hebrew? A man. He wrestled with a man? An advisor, a friend, a man? He wrestled with an individual? wrestled with mankind, wrestled with, dude, what does this say? He wrestled with a mortal, properly a mortal. He wrestled with a mortal. So why do we get all these stories about him wrestling with an angel, wrestling with a god, when it clearly says that he wrestled with a mortal man? And he fought this mortal man all night long, or they kicked up dust all night long. If you asked me to tell you what was going on by strictly interpreting the language, it was a sexual romp all night with a mortal being. But somehow it seems like it's he couldn't beat up this moral being. Was it a Nephilim, one of the giants? Because remember, we've already proven that Abraham, Isaac, Noah, and now Jacob were working with the Lord against the people of the Elohim, like like Cain, and like Job. I've already proven that beyond doubt in other videos. Then this puts a whole new spin on Esau giving up the birthright to Jacob. That might be next. Well, this was not the story we were told in Sunday school. Let's just leave it at that. It looks like Jacob had a sexual romp with a... To me, it just feels like a demigod. Might even have been a reptilian, majestic serpent. That's my bet. Was it a male? Was it a female? We don't really know, but it looks to me like, it reads to me like it's a sexual romp. No gods involved, that's for sure. No angels are involved, that's for sure. And there's a lot, and it clearly says this being put the palm of the hand onto Jacob's genitals. Feels like it was a male. So, who did Jacob wrestle with? Well, if you want to call it wrestling, go ahead. But let's say he spent a night kicking up dust with a being that certainly wasn't God, that certainly wasn't an angel, that the text says was a man, a mortal being. My 2 cents, and it's just my 2 cents, is that it was a demigod, a majestic serpent, a Nephilim giant. And that's what the text says. So, I hope you enjoyed the NCK Sunday School lesson. This ain't your daddy's Sunday school. Woo, man. That's some interesting stuff. And that's just the way we roll here at the Jeff Daugherty Show, Christian Whistleblower YouTube channel. Straight out of the book, straight to the text. And I guess there's a reason why they have worked so hard for 2,000 years to hide what is really going on in this passage. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Be an unindoctrinator. Support my work. Unwind your mind. Unindoctrinate yourself. Be excellent to each other.